Good morning and welcome to TryHard Reading Corner 26. I can't believe we've done it this many times. Our artwork. Okay, every time there's a little crinkle, it's the tape and my art is literally sliding around, but I don't have enough command hooks. I love command hooks. That's another story. But the artwork for today, it's in the back. Do you hear that? It's like the tape ghost. Anyways, the artwork for today is these red flowers, and it says "Forward, always forward." I made it a while back, but I feel bad because I never put it anywhere. I went to BC, so Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. It's a really awesome college. I had a wonderful time there. And one of our slogans is "Forward, always forward," which basically means like, if you keep messing up, if you keep failing, if you keep falling, keep pushing through. And so, fun fact, my living room is like BC themed. Okay, it's not like an Applebee's vibe, but like, it's like a chic omen to my, I don't know. But I was trying to make artwork for our living room, and this guy didn't make the cut, so it made the cut for TryHard Reading Corner, I guess. But yeah, so I thought we might need to remember to go forward, always forward, and keep pushing through. So that's why I created that little ditty. My story for today, I have a fun story with like a history twist, but some of you 8th graders might have heard it, or some of you 8th graders weren't paying attention when I told it because it's a really good story. But I'm going to share it today. So when I was in high school, I actually went to Washington, D.C. multiple times. I was very lucky. The reason it was kind of like multiple times was because I went on the pro-life march twice, my sophomore, junior, senior. I went twice, okay? I went to DC and marched twice. And then we do like a history senior trip. And we all went in the summer to DC as a class. It was really fun. And when you're at the march, like you're focused on like getting to the march and stuff like that. So you really don't have enough time to like sightsee. But my senior trip, it's all about history, and like all the history teachers organize it and things. And it was really cool because there were a lot of things in DC that I kind of walked by and stuff. So I've seen the Declaration of Independence, I've been to Arlington, I've gone to a lot of the history museums, and then we did one special trip out to Mount Vernon. Now, what is Mount Vernon, you ask? That is the home of the first president of the United States, George Washington. Yeah, awesome. And in social studies class, we've talked about Sneaky George and his military brain and how he was awesome in the American Revolutionary War. Now, at that point, I don't know if I truly understood the magic of George Washington, but the experience is amazing. When we got there, there was like this really cool museum. I saw his teeth, all this stuff. But like the most beautiful part of it was there's this gorgeous lawn, and there was this beautiful house, and then right behind the house was like this drop off, and there was like this really pretty lake. Like it didn't seem like real life. I felt like I walked into some classical painting about George Washington. So our teacher was like, "This is George Washington's house," and I'm just like, what? That is cool. What is gonna happen now? And so we get into the house, and we're like, it's like a very loose tour where it's like, some people tell you like, you walk into the like lobby or the hallway and they like give you like 8 facts, and then all of a sudden you start wandering. Like it wasn't like a strict tour, but I also think of like high schoolers wandering around a historical site, okay, because that was me. Now, one really fun fact about George Washington is that his house was made a long time ago. Yeah. And because of that, the foundation wasn't too amazing. And so when you walk in, the house is slightly slanted. Now listen to me. I'm not just saying like, oh, there's just one wonky room in the corner. The whole house is slightly slanted, okay? Also, think of all the stories I've told you with how clumsy I am. The odds were set against me. A slanted house? Are you kidding me? Anyways, so the house is slanted. And also, I just think that they were small. Like, they were literally smaller people back then. Like, you wouldn't just see a 7-foot person all the time. And in case you don't see a 7-foot person normally. Either way, people were not that tall, okay? So the house was very, like, it was big, but it was tight. Like, the rooms were just smaller, but there was, like, 18 rooms and things like that. So the stairs up because I wanted to see the room where George Washington died, his bedroom. That sounds a little morbid. I wanted to see the whole house, okay? So I'm walking up these stairs and like you're literally leaning and it's just throwing off your balance a lot. So we look and we see the bedroom, we see his kids' rooms, we see all these things, and it's like really, really, really cool. And so then we walk down the stairs and we're like still slanted and we're like looking at the kitchen, and it's kind of like a bit of a wraparound house because George knew what he was doing with architecture, I guess. And so we go downstairs and then we enter the kitchen and we're kind of wrapping around and we're about to go into more like a sitting room. So we got like these beautiful chairs with like, there's ropes everywhere, but like do not touch, all this stuff. And there's basically like this really tight path of walking that you can do in certain rooms in certain places, but then they like stop you. You can't touch anything. Smart. But as I'm turning the corner to enter this sitting room, I don't know what happened, if like the house shifted. No, the house didn't shift, I shifted. But remember, I'm like walking like this. So I don't know if like this was like a straight part or if it got even more crooked. I don't know what happened. But then little Miss Johnson starts like kind of like fumbling. Not on purpose, like I'm really clumsy. I feel so bad. But I kind of like stumble into the room and I like low-key kick the fireplace. Now. It wasn't like I was like, I'm a menacing teenager and I'm gonna hurt historical artifacts and I'm gonna kick the fireplace, because what do you get out of that, you know? And also, that's not good. But it was like those stumble, my foot caught the fireplace. I did not break anything. I did not. But you know me, I'm kind of dramatic, so it probably looked like I was being silly, when really, like, I literally can't walk. And of course, there is like a tour guide slash like preserver bodyguard of the house who witnessed, she like kind of like turned and saw the part where I like low-key kicked the fireplace. And also I'm like, whoa. And she got really mad and she kicked me out. I've been kicked out of George Washington's house. Now, granted, to be fair, the first president of the United States House is full of teenagers. Like, this woman is a bodyguard for history. She is doing her job. I just wish she like got a background check or somebody explained to her, no. This is little Miss Johnson. She can't walk, you know? But she's like, you can leave now. And I was like, what? And she's like, please get out. And I was just like, and all my friends were laughing because it was hilarious, because they know the real story. They know I'm not trying to hurt history. And so everybody's still in the house. So I'm like, ugh. And she's like, you can exit from the front door. And she's like doing these like airline things. She's like, you can exit from the front door or the back, blah, blah, blah. But you're leaving now. And I was just like, okay. I felt so bad. And so I'm like, I'm not going through the front door because that's where everybody's coming in, and then everybody's gonna witness what that girl do now. So I went to the back door, and I'm like, maybe it'll look like I went through the house first and I got done, but nobody got done because there's like 12 rooms. It was embarrassing. So I walk out of the back door, and there's like this nice little porch thing, and then it's out looking the lake, not the lake, like this river. It was really beautiful. So I was like, if I had to sit in timeout somewhere, I'd like it to be here. And so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this voice behind me like, well, hello, madame. What are you doing here today? And what brings you to my house? And I'm just like, am I going crazy? Am I seeing things? And I turn around, and it is none other than Martha Washington in a rocking chair. Okay, pause. I do not truly believe it was like 1776 Martha Washington. No. But I didn't know they planted like impersonators throughout the house. I mean, I did not see George, so that's where I'm kind of like, where's George? But they had a Martha. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, hello, Mrs. Washington. Like, I don't know how I knew, but like in my heart, I'm like, that is Martha. And she like small talked to me about what brought me to her property, and maybe we should have tea and crumpets later. And now granted, I know that none of this was real, but it was nice to know that Martha Washington would want me in her house, right? So I was just chilling with Martha, and then my friends come out and they're like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's Martha Washington. And she's like, hello, children. And everybody's just like, you've been hanging out with this lady? And I'm like, yes, I have. And it was awesome. And I even got a picture with her. So I'll have to find that and put it in the video to prove to you this is a real story. But yes, I may or may not have gotten kicked out of George Washington's house. Misconceptions, right? You know, my crime was being clumsy and obnoxious and a teenager. So, you know, be a very good person and like calm and learn how to walk sideways when you enter historical places, because it's so cool to walk through history. It's just I don't know how to walk. But that's a fun story. I love telling my 8th graders that in American history when we start learning about George Washington. Like, has anyone been kicked out of George Washington's house? Raise your hand. And everybody's just like, what? Because I don't even think they knew that was a real thing. But it is. I can attest. I have personal experience. Today is a children's book day, and I'm going to read at a normal pace. I am like running low on kids books, and I can't go to a library, and so I'm like looking around, and so this book is a bit girly, but it's whatever. And it was like my all-time favorite in like 4th and 5th grade. And I think the reason I liked it was because Madonna wrote it. I think that was 90% of the reason why I liked it. Cause like, oh, like this book, like Madonna wrote it. I don't know. But she like, did you know Madonna had like a spell where she like wrote kid books, and they're like really good. And she even does like the artwork and everything. And so it's about this girl group. And so we're gonna read about it. It's called The English Roses. Anyone? Any takers? But like, look at like inside, like all the doodles she did. Like this is her art. That is super impressive. I think I liked half of it for the artwork and half of it because Madonna. But yeah, if you've never heard of it, I'm gonna read it to you. And it's kind of a girl book, but you know what? We can all learn a little something from it. So, and I do remember this book, but it was really cool. Have you ever heard of the English Roses? Here is what they are not: a box of chocolates, a football team, flowers growing in a garden. What they are is this: 4 little girls named Nicole, Amy, Charlotte, and Grace. It's like a girl group. So there they are. There's the girls. Look at the fashion. Bum, bum, bum. Here's some things you should know about them. They go to the same school and live in the same neighborhood. They play the same games, read the same books, and they like the same boys. Drama. They have picnics in the summer and ice skating parties in the winter, and they are practically glued to each other at the hip. Most of all, they love to dance. Look at that. They're ice skating, they're hanging out. So cute. Ooh, look at them dance. It all sounds so perfectly fun and nice, and in many ways it was, but there was one problem. They all were a little bit jealous of another girl in the neighborhood. Her name was Binna, and here are some things you should know about her. She was very, very beautiful. She had long, silky hair and skin like milk and honey. She was an excellent student and very good at sports. She was always kind to people, and she was special, but she was sad. Oh, sad. She was sad because even though she was the most beautiful girl anyone had ever seen, she was always very lonely. She had no friends, and everywhere she went, she was alone. How sad. So there's Binna, and look at all the girls like glaring at her. By now you're probably wondering, what's the big deal? If she's so nice, why didn't the English Roses invite her over for a cup of tea? Listen, I already told you why. Because they were a little jealous. Well, maybe more than a little. Haven't you ever heard of green with envy, or felt like you were about to explode if you didn't get what somebody else wanted? If you say no, you are telling a big fat fib, and I'm going to tell on your mother. Now stop interrupting me. I like that. I think that's fun. Look at them. They're green with envy. Green with envy. You see, the English Roses wanted to be friendly, and they knew that Binna was lonely, but they could not bring themselves to be nice to her because everywhere they went, this is what they heard. What a beauty she is. She shines like a star. That Binna is something else. When Nicole and Amy and Charlotte and Grace heard people speak this way about Binna, they always felt like they were going to be sick. This is what they would say. How can anyone be that perfect? No one ever says that about us. It's not fair to have so much. Let's pretend we don't see her when she walks by. Let's push her in a lake. And that's what they did. No, silly, not the lake part, the pretending not to see her. And so time went on and the English roses continued to have fun with each other while Binna remained alone. Jeez. They're ignoring her. One night when all the girls were having a sleepover party at Nicole's house, her mother peeked her head around the corner and said, "Do you mind if I come in and have a chat with all of you?" "Don't worry, Mom, we're going to go to bed soon," said Nicole. "We're just finishing up a pillow fight." "That's not why I came here," she said. "I wanted to talk to you about Binna. She lives down the street, she goes to your school, she likes to do all the same things you like to do, and yet you never invite her over or make any effort to be friendly with her." There was a very long pause. There's her mama. Coming on in. The English roses looked around the room at each other. Amy was the first to speak. "She thinks she's God's gift to creation just because she's beautiful." Okay, pause. Everybody's God's gift to creation, but not because you're beautiful, because you are you and you are awesome. "Yes, why would we ever invite her over? She gets enough attention already," Charlotte joined in. "It's not that we don't like her," said Nicole. "It's just that she's probably stuck up. Pretty girls usually are." Nicole's mother thought about this for a moment and then said, "I think you girls are being really unfair. She looks like she could really use a friend, and you haven't even had a conversation with her. How do you know what kind of person she is? And how would you like it if people decided whether they were going to be nice to you based on how you look?" Mom goals, speaking the truth. Look at her. What a good mama. The girls knew she had a point, but they didn't know what to say. Suddenly, they didn't feel like having a pillow fight. "Please think about what I said Nicole's mother, and she stood up and kissed them all goodnight. When her mother was gone, Nicole turned out the light, and the girls lay awake in the dark for quite a while thinking about what Nicole's mother had said. No one said a word, and eventually they all fell asleep. And while they were sleeping, they each had the same dream. Ooh. Here they are sleeping, or not sleeping. Ooh. Here's what they dreamed. All four of them were having a picnic in the park and complaining, as usual, about how beautiful Binna was and how she got too much attention and how unfair it was for them, when suddenly a fairy godmother appeared. She was short and plump and very jolly looking. Listen, why am I telling you this? Don't you know what a fairy godmother looks like? Anyway, she landed right on top of Charlotte's sandwich. "Oh, excuse me, is that pumpernickel bread?" she said as she sniffed the air. "I just love the smell of pumpernickel." So there's a godmother, and they're having a picnic. The girls sat and stared at her with their mouths open because they had never seen a fairy godmother before. "Ahem," said the fairy godmother, clearing her throat. "Now, where was I? Oh, yes, I couldn't help but overhear your conversation, and it sounds like you are all quite dissatisfied with who you are, which makes me very unhappy. And I would like to offer you the opportunity to be somebody else." "What do you mean?" asked Charlotte, pulling her sandwich out from underneath the fairy godmother's bottom. "What I mean," replied the fairy, "and please do not interrupt me, is that if you are so jealous of Binna, then by all means you should be somebody else. In fact, perhaps one of you would like to trade places with Binna." "Oh, that's silly. How could we possibly be somebody else?" interrupted Grace. So there, the fairy godmother fell into her sandwich. "Well, if you would just let me finish," harumphed the fairy. "When I sprinkle my magic dust over you, you can become whoever you would like to be. But first, you must want to fly over to Binna's house with me and spend some time with her, just to make sure that her life is to your liking, or anyone else for that matter." The girls all gulped and nodded, and finally Nicole said, But she'll see us looking through the window, and she'll think we're burglars or something." "She might call the police," said Amy. "Oh, nonsense," scoffed the fairy, nibbling on Charlotte's chocolate chip cookie. "When I sprinkle you with magic fairy dust, you will be invisible, and you can go wherever you want to go, and no one will ever see you." The girls just sat there speechless, which didn't happen very often, I can assure you. "Well, don't just sit there stuffing your faces," tutted the fairy, stuffing her face. "My time is very valuable." The girls leaned forward and whispered quietly for a moment. They decided that even though the fairy took their cookies without asking, she seemed rather harmless, and anyway, they couldn't turn down the chance to spy on Binna without her knowing they were there. So they asked to sprinkle the fairy dust, and off they flew to Binna's house. Look at them all flying around. Suddenly, they found themselves sitting around Binna's kitchen table, and there on her hands and knees was Binna scrubbing the floors. Sweat was dripping from her forehead, and she looked very, very tired. All at once, her father came into the room and said, "It's getting late, Binna. When you're finished scrubbing the floor, I think you should start cooking dinner. I'm going outside to fix the car." Benna smiled and said, "Okay, Papa." Then he was gone. Look at that girl go. Benna proceeded to do a multitude of tasks when she finished cleaning the floor. She peeled potatoes, she chopped onions, she set the table, she scaled the fish, she washed and ironed the clothes, and finally, she emptied the trash. The English roses couldn't believe their eyes. They had never seen a girl work so hard in their lives. "She reminds me of Cinderella," said Amy. "She looks like she hasn't combed her hair in a week," remarked Charlotte. "Where is her mother?" said Nicole. "She doesn't have a mother," said the fairy godmother. "She lives alone with her father, and he works all day, so when she comes home from school, she has to clean the house and wash the clothes and cook for dinner." Look at all of her chores. Look at that girl go. "You mean she does it all by herself?" asked Grace. "Yes, you ninnies," answered the fairy. "I just said she lives alone with her father." "Well, what happened to her mother?" asked Nicole. "She died a very long time ago, poor thing," sighed the fairy. "And as you know, Benna has no friends, so she spends all her time by herself." "Well, come along then, girls. Would you like to see what her bedroom looks like?" The English roses all stood up to go, but they felt bad about leaving Benna behind all by herself with so much work. "Oh, don't dawdle, ladies. I've got places to go and people to meet," the fairy said impatiently. So off they went to see if Benna's room was to their liking. There they go. They were not prepared for what they saw. A simple room with a single bed, a chest of drawers, a shelf full of books, and there was, of course, one doll. But only one. Could you believe it? Well, you better, because I'm telling you. There was one picture in a frame on the bedside table, and all the girls gathered around to see who was in the picture. It was a beautiful photograph of Benna's mother. Nicole's eyes began to fill with tears. "I feel so bad," she said. "It must be awful to have no mother. She must feel terribly lonely," said Charlotte, "and we haven't been very nice to her." "Well, what do you say?" interrupted the fairy godmother. "Anyone want to trade places?" They all took a very long pause. I love her wallpaper, though. Look at her wallpaper. That's cool. And there's her picture. The English roses looked at one another. It was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. "I think we've made a terrible mistake," said Grace. "I can't imagine living without my mom." "I don't want to do so many chores," said Amy. "I don't know the first thing about cooking." "Well, is there anyone else you'd like to be?" said Fairy Godmother. "Perhaps in another neighborhood, another city, or even another country. I'm sure I can arrange it for you." "Please just let us go home in our own cozy beds to our families who we love," begged Nicole. "Yes, we want to go home," cried the rest of the girls. "Suit yourself," said the fairy. "But in the future, you might think twice about grumbling that somebody else has a better life than you. As I said before, I'm a very busy woman." In a blink of an eye, the English roses were back in bed, fast asleep. When the morning came, the girls awoke, relieved to find that they were still themselves. They told one another about their dream, and they promised each other that from that day on, they would always be kinder to Benna and stop complaining about their own lives. So here's they woke up. First, they invited Benna to a tea party, and then they started walking to school with her, and not long after, they were doing homework together. Benna even taught them how to bake an apple pie. They soon found out that she was a very likable girl. They grew to love her like a sister and often went to her house to help her finish her chores. Aw, look at them having tea. Time went on, and soon everywhere the English roses went, Benna went with them. And you will not believe this, but people in the neighborhood started talking about them. And this is what they said. "Those English roses are really special. What beautiful girls. They'll grow up to be incredible women one day." Look at them playing, being nice. And you know what? They did. And if you don't believe me, then go and find out for yourself. I didn't make this up. Oh, it's the little mouse telling the story. So it's cute, and I know it's a little girly, but it reminds you that don't be jealous, be grateful for what you have, but also don't don't assume things about people, because you really don't know anyone until you get to know anyone, and you should always give everybody a chance. But it's about kindness, so I thought that was cute. Well, I hope you had a wonderful day. Please know that I love you, I miss you, I care about you. I hope you're doing well. I'm so proud of you. I'm always praying for you. And I challenge you to be kind to one another, especially your siblings, because I know you guys are hanging out a lot. But spread kindness around. We always need a little bit more kindness. But yeah, have an awesome day. Miss you guys.